Welcome back to the Santa Like Flashlight, folks. I'm out here on the lakeshore today with Phyllis Storey. She is a former volunteer at Hope Thrift store in downtown Sandusky. Phyllis, I want to thank you for having me into your kitchen today, and thank you for the coffee.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. It's very good. So just to get right into things, I guess I'm curious what you can tell me about just the organization of Michigan House of Hope and the major decision makers in there. And then in particular, you have a lot of information about I guess it's Tom Bowser, yes. Thomas L. Bowser. And yeah, I'm just going to let you go. I guess your first interactions with this person and just what you learned as you went along.
Well, I met him as I was volunteering, and I was at the liquidation center. They had asked me to, which was just up the road. That no longer exists anymore. And Jason H., I can't pronounce his last name, but he was a manager, and he asked me there. And I went to work one day, and I saw Tom in there with a clipboard, and there was new registers, scanners, computer systems, and Tom was walking around and was teaching me and another girl how to use the computer with the scanners to track inventory. It was just a more business-like atmosphere than at the Hope Thrift store up the street. So I noticed that Tom was very professional, and I didn't think he was at that time, I didn't think he was a resident. And we got a rapport, and I was impressed with the young man. I have a computer background. I've been to Microsoft school, and I could tell he knew what he was doing. I had asked him about putting a shingle on my roof, and he said he could do that. And I gave him a ride here, and he didn't have the proper shoes, so he needed to come back. He did come back and wished different shoes, but he couldn't put the shingle on. But I found out that he was a resident. And we had conversations. I had asked him about the Lord and his experience, and he said the Lord had gotten a hold of him and that he had changed. And I said, are you all paid up? Are you clear and everything? He said, oh yes. He said, I'm all done. All my restitution is paid. I've done my time. I'm starting over.
Yeah.
And he asked me if he could have my phone number so as to call me once in a while so he could maybe go out for coffee with me and be able to talk to somebody other than the men.
Not to interrupt or anything, but when he told you that he was like completely taken care of and from a legal stance, that was a lie. He was a wanted fugitive.
Oh, yes, he was. I didn't know that, but I believed him.
Sure.
I thought he was a very intelligent, nice young man. He carried himself well, and I was impressed with him. And I'm an old lady, you know, so I've seen a few. He had me fooled. Then I said, well, don't you have a mother? And he said, well, sadly, she doesn't want anything to do with me. I said, well, I'm sorry. That does happen. So I gave him my phone number. I really didn't want to pick that part of it up, but what can you say? Well, then he asked me a couple days later at the store if he could borrow just a few bucks until he got paid. And I figured the mission feeds him, and I knew he smoked. What could he want besides cigarettes? He can't drink. He's out on parole. So maybe he wanted 50 bucks, maybe 30. So I said, sure, I'll loan you some money. How much do you need? Well, he asked for 100. Yeah, I gave it to him.
Sure.
And he said, got paid on Thursday. So I went Thursday, and I said, did you get your check? And, you know, I'm here for my money. He said, oh, they haven't even brought us our check yet. Come back tomorrow. And I did. And long story short, it was about 3 trips, and every trip I asked, he had an excuse, and he seemed to get upset. And finally, he got mad. He handed me his paycheck, which was very piddly. just a little over $100. He signed it, said, you take it to the bank, take your 100 and bring me the change, which I did. And then he was telling me that he was going to buy a brand new truck.
Okay.
And he was showing me pictures of it, and he was asking me to help him pick out the color. I was like, how are you getting a brand new truck? He said, well, I have a 401k that I've cashed in. I believed him. So I helped him pick out the color, and he was going to pick it up in Redford. And I said, you know, if you need a ride, I'll drive you there. Well, he was like, he hemmed and hawed. And, he said, one of the guys volunteered to take me. Mm-hmm. And I kept asking him, where's the truck? Well, he told me that they were waiting on a chip, which was believable, because back then they had parking lots full of vehicles, brand new, that didn't have chips in them.
Oh, okay.
And he had gone to a lady in Sandusky and inquired about insurance. Well, one day I was in the store and I brought a friend with me, a female, about his age, and he come up to me and said, who is that? I want to go out with her. And I still at the time thought he was a nice man. So I went and told her. I said, you know, a guy over there would like to date you. And she looked at him and she said, no, I'm not interested. I said,
what were her reasons?
His teeth were rotten. He was fat. He had this chin that was going back and forth. No.
Yeah.
That was her. I said, you better quit being so picky.
Mm-hmm.
So she finally agreed, friendship only. So I told her that. And it was out of my hands then, but she was a close friend. She was my girlfriend, even though I'm old enough to be her mama. I had shared the Lord with her and had been mentoring with her. And I believe that Tom had a genuine experience and that he was a Christian man. Because I told her, you don't want to be unequally yoked. It's just nothing but a heartache. Mm-hmm. Well, she said, I'm not going to be yoked up with him, but I will be friends. Well, they went walking, and next thing I know, she's all giggles and you know what? And she told me that he took her to a house on French Line Road, mm-hmm. a 3-bedroom home with a pool. And she showed it to me on the internet. Beautiful home. Mm-hmm. I mean, nothing really fancy, but it was nearly $300,000 back then. Mm-hmm. And she said he told her that one bedroom was for him and Eleanor, his baby girl, for when she came to visit, which I later found out he didn't see her, he didn't pay, he didn't try to visit. The ex wanted nothing, or the baby mama, they were never married, wanted nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. And one bedroom would be for Heather's daughter, Bella, and they were going to live there and be happy. And I said, well, that's wonderful. And I thought they were going to put a down payment and make house payments. Yeah. I looked it up, saw what it cost, looked up the taxes, looked up the monthly. It was like $1,100 a month, mm-hmm. Taxes included. Mm-hmm. And I had already seen one of his paychecks. So I was in the store and I said, Tom, do you know how much your monthly payment's going to be? How are you affording that house? And he got mad. Mm-hmm. Wow, I'm paying cash for it. I said, you are? How are you doing that? He said, I got a 401k. Well, this is when I started to get a little suspicious. This 45-year-old man that never worked no place longer than 3 months had acquired a 401k, buying brand new trucks and homes and paying cash for it, needing to borrow money off of me. Yeah. Well, we got in a little argument, exchanged a little bit there, and was talking on the internet one time after that, and I just blocked it. Yeah. And I contacted Heather, his girlfriend at the time, and told her, I said, Heather, I want you to know ahead of time, I don't like him. And I blocked him. And I think he's a narcissist, and I think he's a liar. Yeah. And she was upset with me. And
Yeah, she's in love at that
well,
point.
yeah, oh yeah, she was in love. She was really giddy.
Mm-hmm.
All the songs he shared with her and compliments and just everything she ever wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So our friendship became strained, and we were no longer friends on Facebook, but we weren't blocked.
Mm-hmm.
I loved her, and I still love her, and I miss her, and I care about her, and that's the reason that I did all this.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to find out. She's not my daughter,
mm-hmm.
and it really is. I'm not her mother. Her mother.
Yeah.
I led her to the Lord in my kitchen,
mm-hmm.
and I saw a miraculous change in her.
Yeah.
And the Lord blessed me to allow me to see that, and I just couldn't let her. Excuse me.
No, you're okay. Don't do what you got to do. It's just, I guess I'm curious, how many hours of research into Tom Bowser would you say you've done?
I have no idea, but I probably can tell you everything except when he changed his underwear. And when he said in the church that day that a lot of stuff has been put out on the internet about him, and it's all true, he's talking about me. I put it out there, and I have ran around to everybody
mm-hmm.
trying to share it. I have taken it to the barber shop, and copies were spread to City Hall, to radio stations, newspapers, to the sheriff. And bottom line was, couldn't prove anything. You just have to watch. Well, I was taking screenshots. He was living with her. They were shacked up.
Uh-huh.
He's a director, mentoring them men, and Christian men in a position of mentorship. If you read Titus 2, they are called to a standard. And how are these men? Now, I know they told them, you will go to church whether you want to or not. Because
mm-hmm.
some of them men there are like, I don't want to go to church. And I guess that I heard they were told, well, that's your right. Leave if you don't want to go. If you want to stay here, you will go to church.
mm-hmm.
And you will attend a Bible study. If you don't like it, let it go in one ear and out the other. But you will do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're looking to him. He's supposed to be setting an example. And there was pictures of them with drinks and partying, and I thought...
So there's pictures of Tom Bowser with drinks?
Yeah.
And
well, there were drinks on the table, and I looked, and you see 4 people and drink 4 beers. I mean, and he talked about him and her. She invited me over and wants to get drunk, and
mm-hmm.
I can't drive back.
Yeah. Which would suggest that he would drink. It's just drinking is still part of his probation. He's not allowed to drink. I
don't know. My understanding is they surprise call you for you to drop, and you never know. So it's very dangerous. If I know that I got to drop on Wednesday, I'll stop drinking on Monday or Tuesday or however, because I know ahead of time. But with them, it's surprise.
Mm-hmm.
They call, be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when he first got hired into Michigan House of Hope, he would have been a fugitive at that time.
Yes, he was wanted. There was a warrant for his arrest in Oklahoma.
So do you think there's any way that the chief of police, being a member of this organization and being somewhat responsible for the hiring of Tom Bowser, do you think there's any way that he would not have known that this man was a wanted fugitive?
With my knowledge, I don't see how, because if I'm pulled over by the police and I have a warrant or a gun permit or anything, they got a computer.
Yeah, it comes right up.
They know everything about me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, and plus Jason, the former manager, he was really smart with computers too, and he was bragging and he was showing me on the screen because he knew I was into computers, and we would boast and point out and network together. And he said, "Look what I did, Phyllis." I said, "What?" He says, he had set up a background system. where each man that came in, he could put their name in and look them up, and places to save files instead of a stack of paperwork and all that.
Yeah.
And all that. He really did a good job, and he had upgraded. Not as well as police chief has access to, but, and I imagine that whoever was the intake person, the chief of police was allowing them to use his computers and networking to look things up. It's different than just Googling somebody.
Well, do you know that for a fact?
No, but I imagine that. You know, they're letting the men in there. The police should at least back. I mean, Brett, that's where the buck stops.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So here you have a wanted fugitive getting hired in at Michigan House of Hope. The Sandusky police chief makes the hire, knows that he's got a guy who's a fugitive from the law, but hires him anyway. And I have to wonder why. Like, what was the draw to this guy, unless this was somebody that perhaps, you know, the pastor had known previously?
That I don't know. Tom told me how he found the Michigan House of Hope.
How did he claim to have found Michigan?
He was serving time for a felony, and he was near Harbor Beach is what it was. I don't know what prison, but it was up that way.
Is there a prison in Harbor?
I don't think it's in Harbor Beach proper, but up there.
I don't know of a jail.
Well, that's what he told
Harbor
me.
Beach.
Okay, this is what he told me.
Okay.
So he was released early because of COVID. And he was standing in the rain with a bag of clothes and no place to go, and there was nobody would come pick him up. He had no friend. He had burnt all his bridges. And somebody had told him about the Michigan House of Hope, and they came and got it. That's how he found the place. And the only thing I can tell you is that maybe Brett was impressed with his knowledge and his demeanor, because I was too at first. It's all like, I know, but I don't see how he could overlook what I found.
Yeah. So Michigan House of Hope operates the Hope Thrift. You said they used to operate out of the old warehouse down by Ball Equipment?
No. What happened is Jason had a idea. He said, let's order pallets from Amazon.
This was the previous person who held
the manager job of the store.
Okay, so he was the previous manager before Tom took over.
Right. And they said, yeah, we'll rent the building. We'll give it to you. You run it. And if you're making money, the board has agreed. This is what Jason told me, that we'll continue to pay the rent if you can turn a profit over. And that's how Jason said, I want you. And there was another girl there that he asked, a lady about my age, to help. And then there was some men from the mission that were, they get these pallets, like, for instance, coffee tables, and these men were putting them together and on display, and electronic cars. I mean, they had everything, perfume, vitamins, and it was all brand new stuff that had been returned. Some of it, I think, had been recalled, and they couldn't sell it, you know, except giving it to Jason. And Tom was in there helping set it up.
Okay.
That's how I met Tom.
So this was a business that took in slightly used pallets of returned merchandise, and they were selling it out of, they would basically just wrap it up and ship it right back out of...
Yeah, you can do that. There's people that contact Amazon. Like you, I buy a purse and I get it and I open it all up and I use it a couple days and I decide I don't like it, it has enough pockets, and I tell Amazon I want to return it.
Yeah.
And they say sure, because Amazon's that way. But,
yeah.
They package it up as best they can and they resell it at a very, very low cost.
Yeah.
So that was Jason's idea, and it was a good one.
When this was this an idea that was an official function of the ministry? Like, that was official function of the Michigan House of Hope?
I don't know that. It was to help Michigan House of Hope, and Jason got permission to do it.
Okay. Do you know if he got permission to do it as a paid position? Like, did he do it in his official position?
I know the managers were paid.
Okay.
I never asked him about a paycheck, though.
So we're moving now beyond just having a thrift store. And the thing that concerned me about the thrift store is, as I understand it, I could be wrong, but if you live at the homeless shelter, you either have to go to church or you have to work 20 hours a week or some number of hours like that at the thrift store.
That's what I was told, yes.
Okay. So go to church or work for free at our cash shop. Now, can you tell me any examples of cash monies that were coming into the cash register there or going out of the cash register there that were unaccounted for, or just cash with like no paper trail?
I never kept a paper trail. Every place I've been a cashier, we had to run a daily tally.
Yeah.
And I was responsible if there was a shortage or anything. And the register does it. There's the setting you put it on, and it prints out what you did that day.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a sheet, and you mark it all down, and you count your money, and if you're short or over. I never did that. Of course, I never closed. But the managers would do that. Jason always did it.
Mm-hmm.
I never worked when Tom was a manager. I had left before then. But there were times that people would come in and buy things and say it was $15.18, and they'd give me two $20 bills, just an example, and they say, please take the change and donate it. It's going to a good cause. Well, I didn't put that in the register.
Mm-hmm.
I would take it and turn around. There was a office there, and give it to the manager, and
Sure.
he would take it.
Okay.
And I never saw it again.
All right. So, was there a finite amount of time to that? Essentially, I guess it was like a drop shipping item business.
That didn't last long.
Okay.
No.
Did not make it very long at all.
No.
Okay.
Sounded good.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess let's get further into Tom's story. You mentioned that he's a fugitive when he gets hired there. Do you know up around what point the Oklahoma? Well, let's just do this. What more research did you do into him?
Well, I contacted all of his exes.
Okay.
First, I found one, and then I found out that they all were together, friends, like the ex-wives club, because they had all been burnt.
Mm-hmm.
One girl lost everything. He took $30,000, bankrupt her, child support on two children. One's a young teenager, probably 13, 14.
Do you know how much he owes on child support?
Thousands of dollars. It's on the internet. I had it. It's on that paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I talked to all three. There's 3 or 4 right now. I have to look, but I made a Facebook chat group called Justice Seekers.
Yeah.
Well, these ladies were just sending me letters and copies of rubber checks and letters from here and there and what he did. Well, they sent me a letter from Brahms Dairy in Oklahoma, which is a big organization from what I heard out there. It's a big, it's not no. Well, I noticed who had signed the letter, and I called the place, and I asked to speak to him. And they sent me to the director of HR. And he got on the phone with me, very nice people. And I asked him, I said, are you guys looking for Tom Bowser? And he said, you know where the boy is? I mean, they talk with his drawl.
Yeah.
But he said, do you know where he is? And I said, yeah. He says, well, yeah, he owes us a lot of money. And he proceeded to tell me what had happened.
Okay.
And this is the story.
Okay.
This misdemeanor swindling charge where he just left and they decided to get even. That's what I took him that when at church on the altar when he gave his testimony.
Sure.
He said Tom had lived in Maine and had sent me a resume, and had an appointment set up. He came in and sat down and was talking. And in the middle of the interview, he started shaking and crying violently. He could not contain himself. And the man asked, "What is wrong?" He just was, "What's going on?" Well, Tom proceeded to tell him he had just very recently been in a terrible car accident. His newborn daughter had died in his arms, and his mother had died. And the man said, "Look, you had the job before you come in here. I've seen your resume. You're qualified. We do not have to do this interview. You have got the job." He said he gave him, I think it was $10,000 moving expenses, and fronted him so many, 2 weeks, I think. It's on the letter. Pay. And Tom started work, and he worked 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And the man said, "I got a phone call from Tom." I knew it was Tom trying to disguise his voice.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'm Tom's brother, and I want you to know that Tom won't be coming into work. He's been committed to a mental facility. He's had a nervous breakdown over the car accident and the deaths in his family. So I just wanted to tell you." Well, the man said he knew it was Tom. So that's what clued him. So he did some investigating, and he got a hold of Tom's mother. Her name is Gail, and she lives in Grand Rapids. Mm-hmm. And she told him, "His daughter ain't dead, and I ain't dead." And gave him her, he didn't tell me what she said, but she wasn't happy with him. And Tom had told me that. She had disowned him. Well, he drew up a very business-like letter and sent it to Tom. It didn't have all these, it had some of the details that I just told you. So he said, yeah, he would like to get the money back for the company. And he said, "You know, Tom's not the first one that we've done this for. We've done this for many people. We've helped him out. But he's the first one that has run off on us."
Yeah.
So after I got that story, I called the police station there. I believe it was Grady at the time. And the man that answered the phone, I said, "Are you looking for a Tom Bowser?" And he says, "Well, I don't know. Let me get my computer." So he said, "What's his name? What's his birthday?" He goes, "Oh." He said, "You know where he is?" I said, "Yeah, he's working for the chief of police in Sandusky, Michigan." He said, "He is?" So I said, "Yep." He says, "Well, we'll just have to contact that officer."
Yeah.
So he let me go. And I thought, well, that's a done deal. Well, Jason, he was putting things on the internet too. And Jason was talking to the board and Brett, and Tom was living with his girlfriend and drinking, and he would be putting these sexual things on Facebook about waking up in the morning next to her, and jokes about not feeding your girlfriend because she don't put out. I'm like, this is the direct, I mean, at least make it private.
Yeah.
So your friend, because I was screenshotting him.
Yeah.
And I'm not his friend. I had broke up with him, his friendship. Yeah. And I had made a fake account because me and him were blocked. Oh. But I saw him on it. I was watching him, but I could only see what was public. Well, I thought the cops would come and get him. Well, nothing happened. Jason called and spoke to the prosecutor. See, I didn't speak to the prosecutor. Jason did. Mm-hmm. So Jason told me that the prosecutor basically said it costs so much money to extradite him. If he is picked up in a neighboring state or picked up in this state, we will take him. Mm-hmm. But we don't want him. And I believe in my heart he lied to Jason because he was afraid that Jason would run his mouth and Tom would bolt, because they did want him. Jason Jason and Brett and some other men from the board had a meeting with Tom, and they told Tom, you need to face up, you need to turn yourself in, you need to get this taken care of so you can go on with your life.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason said that Tom refused to do it, that he started crying, and his girlfriend's wife said he's really good with tears. Turn him on and off in a second. So he wasn't going to go. Well, I don't know how it came about, but somebody told me that Brett had to arrest him.
Mm-hmm.
This was maybe 8 months later that he had gotten notification that they wanted him and a warrant was sent. This may not be the way it happened, but anyways, Brett, I was told, arrested him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he was making the trips back and forth. And it's a felony. And I was copying, watching, and it kept getting postponed. It was like, why? And he had an attorney. Well, the bottom line, I got the paperwork, is that he was convicted, sentenced to 7 years prison for a felony of obtaining money under false pretenses, which is embezzlement. It's not misdemeanor swindling.
Not when you get up to $32,000.
No, it wasn't 32.
How much was it in Oklahoma?
Oklahoma was like 24,000.
Okay.
In that area. Yeah.
Still, that's felony.
Right. Anything over a certain amount, I'm not
pretty sure it's like $1,000.
Oh yeah, I looked it up.
Yeah.
It was felony over a certain amount. Well, they deferred his sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Under certain conditions, and I got a copy of the paper of what the conditions were, and one of the conditions were, have you had any prior felony convictions within the last 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
And he said no, and he signed it. Well, Ottawa has got the 32,000 plus the truck, and oh yeah, he stole 2 yachts, but that never went to court.
That's Ottawa
County, I believe, or Ottawa, Michigan.
Okay.
Just add water. I called them too, spoke to the man that sold him the boat, a yacht. And he had a picture of it on his webpage with his feet up on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And his friends were like, is that yours, Tom? Well, this is the life. Well, I called him and asked him, do you want to know where Tom Bowser is? I was going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
They just laughed, said, no, we got the boat back, and it was in good shape, and we were able to sell it. We're done.
Okay.
And I said, can I ask you something? He said, sure. He was laughing.
Mm-hmm.
I said, how does somebody do that? And he said, well, they write a check and this and that. He did it.
Yeah.
I got copies of a $73,000 check he wrote to LaFontaine and drove a truck off the parking lot.
And how do you, so I was under the impression that when someone writes a check these days, especially a check of that amount, you call the bank and you verify the funds.
Well, he's smart. I don't know how he did it. Well, also right here in town, and this is the only one that I know of, and if there's one, my mama always said, there's two.
Yeah.
He owns Carsonville Tire. His name's Bob Smith, and I was talking to somebody about Tom. He come over and he said, you know Tom Bowser? And the way he looked at me, it was almost like, if you know him, you can get out. And I said, yeah, I know him. He's a crook. And he kind of relaxed a little bit, and he told me the story about he had given him a check for $25 that bounced.
Yeah.
And I've written a rubber check a few times, but not on purpose.
Yeah.
And when the company contacted me, I was like, I'll be right there.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Please, I'll make it good. Tom refused. He wasn't coming back. Wasn't going to give it to him. I said, you know, if you would have prosecuted him, he'd have gone back to prison because that's a violation. He said, I talked to my secretary and it would have to go to small claims court. And that would cost me more than $25, so I just forget it. He said, but
Well, that's civil court, not criminal court.
Right.
He could have just called the police and had him.
He didn't know that he was on probation. He just he's a nice man.
Sure.
He was mad though.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah. And I guess Heather brought her vehicle up there, and this is what Bob told me and wanted it fixed, and he told her, he said, "Who's paying for it? If it's him, I ain't fixing it," because he loves Heather. Yeah, so he did it for Heather.
Okay. So, I guess what are some of the other like major issues that stand out about Tom Bowser?
Well, I got on the $32,000. The story behind that is, I don't know what company he worked for. Again, it's on the paperwork.
Sure.
And there's a letter in there from the manager that he wrote Tom and said, "You used a company credit card to buy personal items, jewelry and watches, and these big box items. And when I pointed it out to you, you apologized and said it was an honest mistake and that you would make it right. And you never did. Where's our money?" So that's where the $32,000 came from, was company credit cards. And that was in, I think, 2019 or 2020, wasn't that long ago. And then the truck. And then I did a background check on him. There's like 19 outstanding judgments on him for thousands of dollars. He owes a funeral home $7,800. 4,000. Some of them are like 250, 17,000, 11,000, and you just go page by page by page. And it's like, I know they're not paid for, but that, again, that's civil court. And those people will never see that. Because he has nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has nothing.
Wow. So I take it he's not living in this 3-bedroom house with this woman, like that's
401k must have crashed, I don't know.
Okay.
And you think she would have known. Well, he moved in her house, beautiful home with a lakefront view, 2-bedroom, I'm sorry, gorgeous. Well, she just sold it. Okay. They bought a 5th wheel, a nice one, and moved into a campground. And my heart just broke.
Yeah.
She loved that house, loved it, made it so beautiful. So it was, I seen she was selling her furniture. Oh, he gave her a beautiful ring when they got engaged, and everybody was saying, "Did you see the rock Heather's got?" Yeah. And I seen she put on her Facebook. I screenshot that too. He put a picture of the ring and said Jake and Mila. That was their nicknames for each other. And she put a snarky remark. She said, "I think you need to take that down since you took it back." He gave her that ring and she wore it for a little bit, and then he told her he had to have it back. I don't know the story behind it, but the rock that she was so tickled over is gone.
Yeah. And now she's got a 5th wheel.
Oh, that's up for sale now for they wanted $65,000. She dropped it to $55,000, and it is nice. It's a 2022.
Yeah.
But I don't know I don't know what they're going to do or if they'll sell it, but it's up for sale. So she doesn't, because she told me, I had seen her. She hugged me and we talked, and I told her how much I loved her. And she said had to sell the house and that she was living in a camp.
So why did she have to sell her house?
I don't know. Attorney bills.
She's bankrolling this guy at this point.
All the women have. And they talk to her. I have screenshots where these women have said, she's contacted them, sticking up for Tom. Please let him see his daughter. I've seen him cry. She even went so far as getting his mother and him back in good graces. Her name's Gail. She called Gail, I guess, and somehow, and they were going out there to visit him. Well, the baby mama told me she's been letting the granddaughter see grandma. And just recently she was at grandma's, and now I don't know if grandma is all there or if things have changed, but grandma said that, well, they're getting a divorce and I don't want to ever see him again. He screwed me over. So she's cut him off again. And I don't know if the divorce part is true, but that's what grandma said.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So, out of all the other documents that you have that you've received on this guy, what else should our viewers understand or know about?
He doesn't know how to tell the truth, and I think those men, when I was at that liquidation place,
Mm-hmm.
were all standing around discussing their crimes. And Tom laughed
Mm-hmm.
and said, "Well, you can't do it like me." And Jason said, "Well, I have to give you that, buddy. I thought I was," because he was in there for embezzlement. He was a fraud. He said, "You got me beat." So yeah, even then he was tickled over what he was capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, so when you watched the footage of the church service yesterday, what or 2 days ago, what was your takeaway on that?
Well, I don't know the pastor or Brett personally. I do know the email correspondence I had with Brett, and Brett acted like nobody should say anything bad about what Tom was doing, drinking.
What did you inform Brett Lester that Tom was doing?
I never informed him anything. I told Jason, and Jason told him, and they told Jason. Jason sent me copies of a text message from Dave Lawson that said, "You better pull down all the stuff you got on the web about Tom.
Mm-hmm.
You're just jealous because he's getting the job." Now, I wasn't brought up, but Jason told me later they saw my car over at Jason's house, and they knew that I was the one running my mouth. And Jason said that Brett was his landlord. And he said, "Phyllis, I can't be friends with you anymore, and I have to pull everything down off the internet because I'm a convicted felon, and I can't, if I lose this place, I can't find a place to live and I'll be homeless.
Mm-hmm.
I have no credit and nobody will rent to me, and they're very unhappy with right now. I'm going to lose my home." And he blocked me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't hold anything against him. He's friends with me now. He's out and he lives, I think it's Illinois or Indiana is where it is.
Okay.
He's in Indiana and he's started his own ministry down there preaching, and he's happy. He's married and what have you. And he talks to me and he treats me with respect. But he had to let me go
Mm-hmm.
because I was running my mouth and people were mad.
Sure. Okay. So, Chief Lester would have known that he was a felon, or yeah, he was not just a felon, but he was a wanted fugitive at the time of his hiring. As far as his drinking, is his drinking at this point a violation of his probation?
I don't know if he's drinking now.
Okay.
I have no idea. I know he was drinking then, and Heather would invite him over to get drunk, and he would say, "Well, this is when he still lived at the mission." He said, "Well, I can't drive back drunk."
Mm-hmm.
So he let me know he had intentions on getting drunk, but he couldn't. He wasn't going to drive back.
Yeah.
So I guess spend the night. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything else we should know?
Well, she let him move in, and I asked her why. I said, "You know that's a sin."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Well, what else could I do? You know, he had no place to live."
Yeah.
I said, "What do you mean he had no place to live? He lived in the mission. They feed him and give him clean socks and wash their clothes, and they don't have to pay for nothing but cigarettes, and I mean, they even get the toothpaste and shampoo, from what I understand."
Yeah.
He wasn't homeless.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't like his cot, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is the fee structure there? Do the people who live there pay anything to stay there?
I recently heard they do. They have this is what I've heard from people, that they, after being there for so long, they do have to pay. They have to get a job and they have to pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much it is a week, $35, $40 a week they want from them, but they have to pay something is what I understand. Yes, it's no more long, sitting back doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the guys are paying money. They're working for free in the cash store, the all cash store.
Well, the ones that are paying money are the ones that have found a job and just haven't saved enough money from what I take to get an apartment.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't think they're asking men that don't work to pay.
Okay. Okay. Well, are there, out of all the documents that you've gotten over the years, is there anything that stands out to you in addition to what we already know?
Not now with the lights on.
Yeah.
But he's not what he's sitting up there crying and wiping tears and talking about his 3-year misdemeanor that's going to be exonerated if he's good. I'm like, 7-year felony that you've already, as far as I know, when he signed that paper that he had no priors in the last 10-year prior felonies, he shouldn't be out. They shouldn't have let him go based on that.
Mm-hmm.
And if he is drinking, that's violation also. But I don't know that he's drinking now.
Sure. So 1 week from tonight is the Sandusky City Council meeting where a lot of these issues are probably going to be brought up. Do you think you'll be in attendance at all?
Oh, no.
No?
Then I would, will you go with me?
I'll put you right on my arm, dear.
Okay, I'll go with you.
Okay.
They don't like me.
Well, I don't know what to tell them. They hate me too, so
Are you serious?
Well, I mean, I have to assume every time they do something illegal, I start asking questions about it. So, I mean...
Well, you're just the male version of me, huh?
Well, perhaps I am.
You got cameras.
Well, they do help to convey a story for sure. But, I mean, Sanilac County is a really underserved media market, and people have a real desire to know what's going on, and they need to know it in long form interviews like these so that, I can really pick your brain and give them as accurate a picture of who Tom Bowser is. And it sounds very much like he is either a triple or quadruple time felon, and he must owe in excess of $100,000.
More than that, I think.
Probably, probably over $200,000 from the sound of all the child support, all of the items, all the restitutions, the judgments for sure. So I guess that tells us exactly what I wanted to know about Tom Bowser, the employee that Brett Lester hired in to run this. And I mean, he told me he was the caseworker the other day, but he's the director for he's the director for...
I understood he's a director. I know there was quite a few people, Jason, that set up that computer information database, had where they were putting these men's, they had to have a bank account if they worked, and they had to give their social security number, and there was people giving Tom their bank account number and their social security number. They're nuts.
That's all he needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't fathom why you would want a criminal, a fugitive, to run your homeless shelter. Like, this is the peculiar part. Tom
is very knowledgeable. I watched him. There's some kind of, I don't know what the report's called, but when you, like at the liquidation, there's certain monthly spreadsheets that have to be made. I mean, you have to do it. Mm-hmm. And Jason was completely lost.
Yeah.
And Tom was showing him, and I was watching, and I could tell he's a very smart man. He's white collar, upper echelon. He just uses it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some talent there. It's just he's he's taken the shortcut in life every time, it sounds like. And
you should hear the telephone conversation I recorded.
Oh,
it was 40 minutes long.
With him?
With his wife.
Okay.
What he did to her, and him hiding and telling her to run home and get the checkbook. And 2 days after they got married, she got one of them little Jeeps.
Yeah.
And he said, let's trade it in for it was a Lexus or something.
Yeah.
And he took her to the dealer. She was like, yeah, baby. And she traded in her nice little Jeep that she got, thinking she's going to get this fancy car.
Yeah.
And they got it.
Yeah.
But it got repoed, and there was 2 trucks and I forget how many cars, and he was on the run, and they went to her mother's house, and he's demanding to go home, get the checkbook. She's like, what for? You're going to write another check?
Yeah.
With no money. There's something wrong. Or he's gotten away with it so many times, he thinks he's just supposed to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I had a little girl one time, I was single, and she wanted something, and I said, Mama don't have the money. She said, well, just write one of them checks you got in your purse. And I said, honey, you got to have something to back that up with. Well, I think that's what Tom thinks. You just write one of them checks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my first impression of this guy, just going into Hope Thrift and interviewing him just, offhand, my impression is that he's a really skilled liar, and that he is also a coward. But yeah, I'm still trying to...
Oh, you had him addled. I knew him well enough. You had him addled. I could hear it in his voice, but he performed well.
Oh, he did.
Yes,
he really did. He said that... I do believe from talking to Sydney Kitchen that there was indeed another camera in there, and he's lying about that.
You know what? I believe that too.
Uh-huh.
And she said she heard him say, I knew he wasn't supposed to be around kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. That he said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So... yeah, this is going to turn into quite the lawsuit. At least a lawsuit. Yeah. Really, there really should be criminal charges filed.
Kidnapping, at least.
Oh, I mean, they're already I'm talking about against Tom. Like, I mean, what he did was, by having that guy in there, was illegal. Even bringing him into the he wasn't, to my knowledge, he wasn't supposed to be bringing in anyone with criminal sexual conduct. And I mean, they might have just given him an assault charge, but no, that guy obviously was not supposed to be around little girls. And I mean, if she can testify to that in front of a jury in a civil case, I'm pretty sure they're going to come down really hard on. It's not just going to be, Chief Lester or the city of Sandusky. It's definitely going to be Hope House Ministry. Like, I don't know. This is easily the most messed up thing that's happened since I've been back to Sanilac County. And,
it's a travesty.
Oh, it is. And I bad things happened back in the 80s. Bad things happened before police wore cameras on their bodies, and bad things still happen. But I don't remember them being as egregious as they used to be. And then this happens, and it's like, yeah, how are people not just lynching this guy and throwing him in jail themselves with a citizen's arrest,
Or picketing the place. When I volunteered there, they told me that there was cameras all over the place because they got criminals in there.
Yeah.
They're watching, not the customers, the volunteers.
Mm-hmm. So they're lying to the public about not having the incident on camera. We know that. Trying to think of what else I asked him in that interview. Yeah, we're not sure. We're not sure what might have happened. It's like, and then a guy said a gentleman said at the service on Sunday, he said, because there's multiple stories here, multiple stories. It's like, no, there really isn't.
No.
Someone went in there a little child was attacked in your store, and the person that did the attack was a guest at your ministry's homeless shelter. Like,
all I heard was damage control on their part,
yeah.
and that if you say anything, you are not a good Christian.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. Oh yeah. It seemed like just this was them trying to stay out in front of, what is essentially a really big scandal, and they're trying to prep their own congregation for how to respond to it. And we're gonna pray over these men, and we're going to just prep you for what the community is going to say to you, which is completely valid. Like, you've got criminals running your homeless shelter. You've got the chief of police violating the law. And I mean, Brett Lester to me looks like the biggest joke out of all these guys. And I had a hard time at first trying to figure out if he was just incompetent with his heart in the right place. But after the fake tears on Sunday, and after finding more information out about what he knew and when, I mean, he hired a fugitive. Like, there's no excuse for that. As far as I'm concerned, he should never work as a police officer ever again.
I met him a couple times, and he shook my hand and he thanked me for volunteering, and said that he was very grateful, and my impression of him that he was a very nice man and he had a heart for the homeless. But when I found out all this stuff, I either had to make a crook out of him or make an idiot out of him, and I still don't know what to do.
Yeah.
He's the chief of police.
Yeah.
I found out.
Yeah, I think that really the reason he's still chief of police is because the city council of Sandusky are complete airheads, and they just worship whoever the police executive is. Like, they have no say in it. Obviously, I don't think Paul Rich is going to do anything about this, because he doesn't want to start waves. I'd be surprised if he ordered an investigation into anything beyond just the individual attack on the 8-year-old girl. So, I don't know.
That's not good.
Well, I mean, he should be ordering an investigation of the entire practices.
It should be an outside entity that investigates.
Absolutely it should, and it should not be. I don't think it should be. I guess in this particular situation, I'd be okay with the state police doing the investigation.
I heard they can.
Oh,
that's who it's turned over to in case,
Oh, so the sheriff's office has turned the individual attack?
No, I heard they can. I used to go out with a police officer, and he said that when if the state police show up, this is ours now.
Yeah,
that's because there's a
hierarchy.
There's a hierarchy. Yep.
Yeah.
The state police can come in and say, "Nope, boys, it's mine."
Okay. Well, yeah, if you don't have anything else, I think we could probably wrap this up, if only because I've got to head down to Croswell and do another interview with another individual, not on this topic, but I've definitely got more interviews lined up on this particular story, so I'm just going to keep right on it because, it's just the tip of the iceberg right now.
Thank you for interviewing me. You don't know how long I've wanted. Nobody would believe me.
Thanks for saving all that great documentation. I'm sure I'll get copies from Sydney Kitchen, and when I'm making up this, when I'm doing this video up, what I'll probably do is have an intro where I just go over the evidence that you've shown, and I'll try to give my audience. Naturally, I'll try to give you guys as good an idea of how much money this guy owes all over the country, because it's not a paltry sum.
I just happened to give those to her yesterday. I got tired of carrying them around because nobody listened. So I thought, honey, I told her, I said, Cindy, you probably can do more with these than I ever could.
Well, hey, Mark the Barber listened, right?
Yeah, well, Mark listened. He believed me. He sure did.
Shout out to Mark's Barbershop.
Yay, Mark.
Yeah, so I guess, I appreciate his spirit very much. But yeah, I think that, this thing is going to keep unraveling as it does, as it always does. But, I just appreciate your dedication to getting the truth out. And it's people like you, really, that make my job a lot easier, for sure.
Well, thank you.
Well, don't mention it.
I've been felt very condemned, but
I believe
it's the truth.
No.
And Tom even said it up there on that altar.
Yeah.
It's all over the internet, and it's all true. That was me he was talking about.
I think that's his way of sort of diffusing it that way.
Trying to be humble.
Well, how many people in that congregation are actually going to go out and look on the internet for information about this guy afterwards?
You know what I think happened?
Yeah.
I think he really was trying to shut me up. And somebody told him, you can't, because he even brought it up, and I knew before I did it, I was careful. If it's public information,
sure,
you can't do anything. It's not slander.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, at this point, I'd say he's a public figure. Like, he's at the center. He's at the center of something quite big. Obviously, Chief Lester is a very easy target right now, given the fact that he is the chief of police of Sandusky, Michigan. So, but again, he's chosen to do this to himself, and it's really sad because I don't think he was the worst cop ever. I think he probably did his job in Sandusky with, a fair bit of tenacity and even keeled. I mean, I haven't heard a whole lot of complaints about the guy.
I haven't heard any either.
But this is,
where's his head?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what makes sense here. Like, get rid of the shelter and keep him as chief of police, or get rid of both. I don't know, but I think people in Sandusky really are just sick of the homeless industrial complex. And
well, there's a guy that walks up to M46 in a pink dress and high heels, and I guess he could come out of the shelter. I don't know if he still lives there, but he's a very colorful person. But
sure.
You'll find that anywhere, I guess.
I think you will, but I mean, this shelter has brought around a lot of people that, obviously Friday was sort of the boiling over of all of these. And I mean, I've gotten video in the last 24 hours from concerned citizens that are, taking videos of these guys walking around. They look drunk, they look impaired, they look totally out of it. And these are people that are staying there. And I think that it's just a big scam. I think it's just they're taking in federal dollars to let these guys stay in a building that's probably paid for, and is probably I'd have to check to see, because I've still got to get all the forms, like the 990 form. I got to request that from the Secretary of State or the Attorney General. But I have to get a better insight into how they're doing things.
Somebody said check the 501(c)(3).
Yeah, it would be. I would have to get a hold of the SOS and 501(c)(3) information from them to see what their filings look like. But here they are taking in federal funds to house these guys. They're kicking them out all day. They just have to have a guy like Tom or somebody else, stay there with them at night while they're sleeping. They kick them out. I heard from a woman yesterday, they're all walking uptown at like 4:30 in the morning. Like, that's how early it is when they kick them out.
Well, I was in the alley. Where was I going? To the florist.
Okay, so you were in the alley behind Elk Street Brewery?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's really where they're hanging out.
No, this was behind the store, just before they opened at 10 o'clock.
Which store?
The thrift store.
Oh, okay, back behind on the other side.
They
back
opened
by
at 10.
Back by like the vault.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a male volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell by the way he was dressed that he was a volunteer. And a woman. I don't know if it was some girl that he met after he came here. But it was what they were doing out there was, you want to yell, get a room. It wasn't I'll drop you off for work, honey, here's a kiss, goodbye. It was hot and heavy.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
get a room.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maintain your modesty by all means.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if something comes up in the future, I would say, Phyllis, I'm happy to meet with you again. I mean, obviously, this thing is going to keep developing, and at some point, it makes sense for all of us to just stay in touch. And I just think that something like this has the potential of getting ugly, but at the same time, I'm I'm not thinking it's going to. I think that the guilty parties know why they're guilty and know why the entire community is looking at them like they're pariahs. And yeah, I don't think anyone's going to make a move on anybody. And if you'd want to be my guest at next Tuesday night Sandusky City Council meeting, I'm happy to have you.
I accept. I'd love to go.
All right, dear.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I look forward to being there with you.
Okay.
But thanks again to everybody for tuning in, and I thank Phyllis Storey for meeting with me here today. And you have anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
you guys have a great day, and as always, go with God and walk in the light of truth. Take care.